Bill O'Brien wants depth. He has it, and now it's time for some positional battles at Boston College spring practice.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all who have made us your first listen every morning, every afternoon, and every evening. This is Locked On BC, a daily Boston College podcast. Now, on today's show, I want to talk a little bit more about the hiring of decision to hire Jack Butler as the new school president. Lots of athletes have started to chime in, and they are overwhelmingly positive. I'll explain why that should get you excited about the future of Boston College athletics. And we are now 25 days away from the start of spring practice starting. And Bill O'Brien wants players to earn it. We're going to look at some of the positional battles that I am going to be watching when it comes to spring practice this year. So let's kick it off with some football. Now, BC doesn't even have a full staff right now. Ray Brown, he left for the NFL. They still do not have a defensive backs coach. I'm sure that'll be coming soon. But once that's in, their coaching staff should be locked in. Maybe something could happen, but we don't know that. What you get your players in, you've got your early enrollees in. They're already working with Craig Fitzgerald, and these players are going to want to get those starting roles, and they're going to be battling. And there's going to be some fierce battles, I think, at spring practice. This is it's getting to be a deeper Boston College team. You've got a lot of youth coming in. You have 27 true freshmen. You've got 9 transfers coming in. This is all just going to lead to, good battles to have the best player win. And with Bill O'Brien, this has been something he's preached. We've seen it over and over again where not to rag on not to put down a guy that's left, but going into last year, Jalen Cheek and Bug Jones were who I thought would be the safeties to start. One of the two would be the starting safety. Didn't happen because Carter Davis, Omar Thornton, they beat him out, and that's just the way it worked. Same thing at running back position. You had Jordan McDonald, a guy I didn't think after watching some practice early on would make that big of a role. He busted butt during the fall and the summer, and he becomes a valuable competitor moving down. Same thing with Turbo Richard. So things can change. Guys can jump up. And that's the fun thing about these freshmen, these transfers that are coming in. Right now, the coaching staff knows best what they think they can do. But until we see live bullets and seeing them go against each other in scrimmages and practice, it's hard to gauge where they're going to fall. So here are some battles I'm looking forward to. My first is the edge position battle. Right now, Donovan Azaraku is gone. Quintavious Hutchins will probably be the starting one of the starting edge rushers, but you get 2. Nnaeto Paul is gone. Gilbert Tongrangu, he medically retired. He's gone, but he wasn't really playing a big role. But you've got a really big, vacant sign on that second position. And hey, Quintavious Hutchins could lose it too. I don't know. Things could happen. But, BC went into the winter and they addressed the need for edge rushers in the transfer portal. They brought in Onye Nwosisi out of Valparaiso and Favor Bate. Nwosisi is much. He's played a lot more. He's only got 1 more year of eligibility, while Bate, I think, was just brand new at Merrimack. He probably needs a little bit more seasoning. So you've got a guy like Nwosisi who could just jump out and take that starting job. He's jumping from the FCS, and I think a lot of folks are just curious. Will he have the edge to do that? The film is exciting. I think he has a lot there, and new defensive line coach Jordan Thomas will have some options to get him going and hopefully coach him up so that he could. But there's other guys that are on the roster now that are dying to get that opportunity. I look at guys like Edwin Kalengi, who's been now on the roster for 3 years and has seen not starting. Yeah, he played a little bit of starting roles 2 years ago, but saw less playing time under Bill O'Brien. This is his chance, right? This is his big opportunity to jump up and take that. Can he win that? That's a guy that, I think, he's dying to get into more snaps. He had a much smaller role last year. Could Edward Kalengi be a guy that we see? And then I go back to last summer, and, some of this is coach speak when I hear it, but I heard a lot about Josiah Griffin. Josiah Griffin, the brother of Joseph Griffin, who's now on Wisconsin. I think he played like 7 snaps all year. I mean, he didn't play at all, but maybe this will be his 3rd year on campus. Could he develop into your starting edge rusher? Part of me is worried because if none of these work, then you don't have anything, and that's worrisome because you just lost Donovan Ezeraku in the 16.5 sacks. You got to find something here. But maybe, every year there's going to be, like going into last year, I will fully admit, I did not have faith that Quintavious Hutchins would do the things that we just saw him do this last year. A very pleasant surprise. Pleasant surprises can happen. Guys can bust their butts. They can get themselves in better shape. They can, get more accustomed to the way things go. So I think that's something to watch for. This edge rushing position, I think, is going to be a very interesting spot. And one that's going to have a lot of guys battling for that spot. Now, I'm going to go with defense again here, and I'm going to stick with the defensive tackle position. Now, you go into next year, you've got George Rooks. He could be a guy that you're going to go to. Owen Stodmeyer. He also played significant snaps. We saw Ty Clemens come in. Quan Williams. These are, there's a lot of guys here that have experience and have played quite a bit. Now, none of these 4 guys George Rooks has played quite a bit. But, if you're looking to try to find a guy that has Cam Horsley upside, Rooks may not be that guy. We know what you got with George Rooks. He has his moments, and sometimes he has his moments where he's not the most dynamic defensive tackle, but there's other times where he makes some good plays. So that's kind of what his role is. All these other guys I just mentioned, they're just dying. Again, I go back to they're dying for their opportunity to jump out there and take that spot. And you saw every one of those guys I mentioned all have big spots. I mean, obviously, my play of the year last year, one of my favorite plays was Ty Clemens' big guy touchdown. He had his tutty. That was great. But again, there's other contenders that come in that could really battle for these positions. I go to Chuck Nnaeto, the transfer from Elon. He is an FCS player, but could this guy come in and really battle for a big role? There was a reason why he had multiple Power 5 offers. There were lots of teams that watched his tape and thought this was a guy that could come in and play. He's not coming in with 1 year of eligibility thinking that he's not, he's going to play the role of a guy that's, an FCS transfer that's going to be on the practice squad. He wants to battle and play. And I think he's going to have that opportunity to do that. So he's someone I would watch for. And then I've mentioned this guy many times, and I'm going to continue mentioning him. Defensive tackle is not a position I think of with true freshmen, but Sterling Sanders, a 4-star freshman, that just came in, the one they flipped from Georgia Southern. This guy has been getting more and more press since he committed to BC than I can remember any recruit getting. And the fact that he committed to BC, got the bump up from 247, shows me that there's a lot to like here. He's an earlier enrollee. He's huge. He's like, I think 6'4", 6'5", 320, and has he's a bowling ball up the middle. Again, I'm a little bit more conservative on what I expect out of freshmen on the defensive line, but who knows? So I just listed off 5 guys. Any one of those guys could take those 2 defensive tackle spots on Tim Lewis's defense. It's crazy. That defensive line, there's a million permutations that you can, not a million, but there's dozens of permutations that you can come up with of how that could shake out going into 2025. And we're going to start to watch and see who really sticks out during practice when things kick off in spring in a couple of weeks. Now, in a moment, I'll go to the offensive side of the ball, and I'm going to give you some more battles that I'm going to be watching for. We'll get into all that in just a moment. Attention, locked on Boston College fans. The future of college sports is here and it's transparent. Before the Roy App, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now, with Roy, you get to be part of the change and support Boston College athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app, allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control, no more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Boston College athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite player. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. Thank you all for subscribing. And head over to Eagle Insider when you're done with this episode. Eagle Insider is the written work that I do. We have recruiting news. We have previews of the upcoming spring football. Lots of good stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. Check over to Eagle Insider part of 247 when you were done this episode. So positional battles, I got to say, as someone who covers it, it's fascinating. And now that Bill O'Brien hopefully will keep practices open, getting to watch guys, it really elevates how college football practices go, because you can watch guys going one-on-one, in 7-on-7s and things like that, and really get to each other and see who really steps up. And that's why, like, after last summer, there were a lot of folks that were really high on Grayson James. You saw it during camp, and then you saw more of it during summer. And then all of a sudden, he's unseating Thomas Castellanos, right? So I look at the offense. Positional battles I'm going to be watching for. First and foremost, I would be lying if I did not say I'm interested to see the battle between Dylan Lonergan and Grayson James. I've said over and over again, I think Grayson James, and I'm not going to go, this is not like a big one I want to go over because I just talked about quarterbacks a couple episodes ago. But to see how these two compare to each other, to see if Grayson James is really that much more further along than Lonergan, or if Lonergan has something that we're just not expecting. I expect that Bill O'Brien, Will Lawing and Jonathan DiBiase, the offensive coaches, have all watched enough Lonergan tape to know what they're getting. But this is another position where they're not going to let rest on Grayson James's, month of November. If Dylan Lonergan goes out there during camp and impresses and makes those plays and learns this offense and gets up to speed, he could very well be the quarterback when it comes to September. But that's a battle that we're going to have to watch. Additionally, on the offensive side, the offensive line, specifically how BC lines up their offensive line, is going to be something. And I'm going to call it a positional battle just across the tackles, offensive line, centers, because, again, just like with the defensive line, there's no set permutation of how this could work out for Boston College. You've got guys like Dwayne Allick, Logan Taylor, Jude Bowery, Ryan McGow, and you got those guys. And most of those are, when you make your permutations of how things are going to work for this offensive line, you would assume most of them are going to be the guys that you're looking at. However, there's been wrenches that have been thrown in, and I can't throw the wrench in because this is a spring football practice. Tommy Matheson from Princeton, who is a center guard, could be someone to watch for. However, he won't be at spring practice because he's still at Princeton until the summer. So I'm not going to say him. You have other guys, Michael Krauntz, for instance, Eryx Daugherty, some of the other younger players like Jack Funk, who I know a lot of fans out there are excited to hear more about. You've got players that you're bringing in that you're hoping are developing to really boost up your offensive line, because you lost a lot. You lost Ozzie Trapillo, you lost Drew Kendall, and Jack Conley. That's three starters, three guys that did a ton of snaps. So who jumps up? Who learns his offense fast enough that they can be your starting 5 or 6, depending if they go big? And the Eagles break camp and play Fordham. I can't tell you who I think will start. And honestly, there's other like ways that you can look at it too, where you know Dwayne Allick can play guard, he can play center, Logan Taylor can play anywhere. You've got all sorts of different changes you can make to make the offensive line, the starting five, any number of different ways. That's good. Honestly, get the best five out there. I'm excited for guys like Ryan Mickow, who we just saw a taste of against Nebraska, but this is his chance. This is a guy I think is going to be really good. This is his big opportunity. But I'm also like, I'm very fine with Dwayne Allick being out there. He's been just a consistent offensive lineman. He's, maybe he's the center. We don't know. But that's kind of one position where I'm looking at and saying there's a lot here that we could be watching at camp. How are they going to start the five? Who's going to be working with who? That's something I think that's going to be fascinating. Additionally, during camp, I am very interested to see how the wide receiver room shakes out in terms of positional battles. Reed Harris and Lewis Bond are going to be two of your starters. That is a number one. We don't know because we haven't heard any confirmation on how severe the injury to Jaden Skeet was, whether he'll be back or not for spring camp. I don't know. I can't even guesstimate if he'll be there. But there's a number of names that are coming in that I think are worth looking at and saying, I wonder if these guys will be wide receivers that we'll see more of when it comes to camp during the summer and during the actual season next year. You got guys like Dawson Poe. Dawson, I think, is a very underrated athlete that I think could do some really good things. Coming out of Tuscarora, Virginia, he had 30 touchdowns his senior year. That's crazy. That's a big number. And then you have guys, you've got VJ Wilkins, your transfer from Campbell. You brought him in. He's done quite a bit for the Camels, I think. He had over 1,000 yards or so in the last couple of years. He's a playmaker. And then you have other freshmen that are coming in as well. When you're looking at guys like sorry, I lost his name. Right, I had it right in front of me. Nedrick Bolden. That's the one I was thinking of. Sorry. There was Nedrick Bolden, and then there's another one coming in later. But Nedrick Bolden is the nephew of Anquan Bolden, and he's a playmaker. So you have a bunch of very interesting younger players that could jump in. And I'm not even bringing up guys like Cedric Lott, who could eventually become a big name for BC. He continues to learn the position, but there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of battles that can happen. And the way I looked at a lot of these positions is it's not just one guy versus one guy. Bill O'Brien is building positional depth. And I think that's an important detail to distinguish. It's not just one guy versus one guy, and that's going to be the battles we're watching for. There's multiple guys, multiple players that could go out there and earn the starting role. It's that earn it mentality. That is what he's been preaching. And this will be a camp where we can actually see at multiple positions, players that are just going to have to go out there and, give 110% every single practice if they want to get out there and start. That's good football teams. That's how you build a developmental program. I think Bill O'Brien is going to have his first camp that's really going to be filled with that. It's going to be fun. Now, in a moment, I want to talk more about Father Jack. Father Jack is going to be the next president of Boston College. I gave you my thoughts a couple days ago, but I want to talk more about what players are saying and some really interesting thoughts from a few of them. Welcome back, Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. And for all of you looking for another episode to watch or listen to after this one, go check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. Everything talking about the upcoming college football season, the previous one, and the coaching changes, everything. He's got it all covered there on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast for Locked On College Football. Now, 2 days ago, Jack Butler, I think kind of shockingly, was named president. Not shocking because I thought he would be the best candidate overall. Just the timing was just kind of out of the blue. It was, all of a sudden there's this, I got pinged by like 4 different people like, hey, AJ, did you hear Jack Butler's the new president? I'm like, I had no clue. But they had, a session and they picked him and He's a great choice. And I said this on an episode 2 days ago that I thought Jack Butler is a guy that's going to take Boston College athletics to the next level. He's a chaplain for the BC football team. He has been around the school, and everything I've heard has been positive. And I want to share with you a few comments that came through from former athletes. First of all, there was a very positive note from Jared Dudley, who I think was very happy to hear that Jack Butler is coming home, or he's here, but he's going to be running the school. So that was a big one. Sean's, but the one I want to talk to you about is Austin Stevens, who was a former Boston College offensive lineman. He played during the Steve Adazio days, and he wasn't really a big name if you didn't know who he was, but I remember his recruitment, and I remember learning all about him. Well, he's a follower. He's probably out here listening to today's episode. So Sean, Austin, excuse me. I want to shout out your comment because I thought it was great. I'm going to read it to you because I think it's interesting. He said, making this loud and clear from a guy who was around Father Jack a lot as an ex-BC football player in the locker rooms at mass, side conversations, etc. This hire right here may be larger for athletics program than Bill O'Brien when he was hired. And O'Brien being hired was what I thought was the top of the mountain. Finally, the athletic door has been busted open. There is no one more competitive that wants to win, that cares about the players and the university's image, that takes pride in Boston College and shows people that they think what people think about us than Father Jack. Mark my words, we are 1,000% in the best hands possible, and BC as a university is going to new heights. Couldn't be more excited. Congrats to Father Jack, long time coming. Not to mention he is a realist and understands the times we're currently in with college athletics regarding football and the NIL. I can't say exactly what he's going to do, but I can tell you he's not going to hide, and he's going to bring the best BC to the forefront of the ACC because that's where we should be. Man, if that doesn't make you want to run through a wall, I don't know what does. That is exactly if what Austin is saying is what we're going to get out of Father Jack, man, BC is going to be in for a really, new heights. I think that's the best term to say, new heights, right? Because for years, under Father Leahy, whether you liked him or disliked him, it's hard to hate a priest, but he's a businessman too, so you can critique that part of him. It felt like BC athletics has always been kind of treading water. You've had teams like the hockey team and lacrosse that have been doing well, but as a whole, it hasn't felt like it's taken to that next level. The hire of Bill O'Brien was the first really big thing that I felt like, wow, this school is finally getting it, because football obviously is the marquee program. So a guy like Austin Stevens sees that, right? Like, he's been part of the program. He knows better than me or anyone else, what goes on behind the closed doors. And, he knows Father Jack better than us because, he was the team chaplain. So it was great to see that. And then other BC players were hitting me up on Twitter as well. I saw Sean Sylvia, who was a safety. I think it might have been the same years as Austin, saying, I can second this. I spoke to Father Jack earlier today and echoed our sentiments and excitement. World-class man who is going to do a lot of good for sports and the school in general. Absolute slam dunk hire. So there you go, folks. The athletes themselves, the people that know Father Jack, think this is a big hire. And everyone I've talked to has been saying the same thing. So for BC, the school that has, on social media that gets just trashed by everybody, this could be a defining moment for this program. One of those historic hires that changes the future of everything about BC sports. Whether it's the budgets, the money that's put into it, the way recruiting is done, the way that transfer portal, NIL, all of this could be changing just because of one hire. And I'm not sure how he's going to change things. We'll have to wait to see his vision and how things pan out. I've said all along, the first big note that we could be watching is the coach of the basketball team. How does he view this? How does Jack Butler view how Earl Grant's doing? And who, if he does move on, who does he hire? That could be the first one. So this is our episode today. I'll be back again tomorrow for Friday. It'll be another later episode. I am away right now, as you can see behind me, with this great ski cabin that I'm at that I've been recording a little bit later. So I apologize that these are coming out later. I'll be back on our normal schedule again next week. So thank you all for subscribing. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. If you are on Apple iTunes, please give us 5 stars. It does help other people find us. And thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. We appreciate you, and we'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.